Hey guys, I hope you're doing well. Welcome back to the channel. Today I want to talk about this book, Who Moved My Cheese by Dr. Spencer Johnson. It is a very small book, as you can see, but it's a really impactful reminder on how we deal with change when we're faced with it. Now, without any further ado, let's get into it. So the story follows four little characters, two little mice and two little people who are chasing for cheese. They enter into a maze. They run around, finally find their cheese, and then they get comfortable and complacent. Every morning, these four characters wake up and go back to eat their cheese, go back home, wake up next morning, go back to eat their cheese, home, rinse, and repeat. Now, as they become comfortable and even a little complacent, one day they wake up to find that all of their cheese is gone. Now, the different characters in the book handle this little slight change in plan differently. You've got Sniff, who is a little mice, and Sniff has been sniffing around for changes and sniffing around for opportunities in the maze the whole time. And maybe in the real world, Sniff could be the innovator, the person who's always looking for change, the person who doesn't quite settle in things. Now, while this may work well in a professional sense, I'm not sure how well it works in your personal life and relationships and so on. And then you also have Scary, who's also a mice. Now, Scary doesn't take time. When it's time to move, they move. And then you've got the two little people who've got the complex computer inside their brains. They analyze things and they're quite sophisticated and they think they're the best thing to work in this world. If it sounds familiar, maybe it's because it's you and I. You've got Ham and How. Ham resists change. Ham is afraid that whatever's on the other side of change is bad. It can't be good. Good is what I know. And Ham is comfortable with what they know, and so they want to stick with it. How, on the other hand, is a little bit hesitant at first. They love the life that they have built. They love the cheese that they got to know, but they are quite realistic in understanding that that cheese is gone. There's been a change. And so while it took time for How to make the decision, when they finally did, they went on looking for cheese on the other side. And I think How also introduces us to a fifth person in the book, one that wasn't necessarily written out about, but the person that has a change of mind. And the lessons that I'm about to chat about are things that How teaches us. It's all the lessons that How learned as he left Station C, where cheese was previously abundant and now there was nothing left, in search for more cheese. And I want to focus on those lessons and how you and I could maybe be the fifth person that's not really spoken about in this book. The first lesson is that change is absolutely guaranteed. I mean, you and I are probably familiar with the phrase that the only constant in life is change. The passage of time, passage of years indicate the existence of change in our personal lives as well as in our universe. I mean, I don't look like I looked 5 years ago. We've got climate change that's happening around us. And so with the passage of time, with seasons, with years, we understand that change is actually happening around us. And so we ought to approach situations with the awareness that A, we ourselves are changing, and then also that B, the situations and the environment around us is also changing. The lack of awareness around the topic is what leads to us being taken aback or taken by surprise, shocked, when the evidence of the change that's been happening all along is finally brought to life. In this book, the two little mice were always sniffing around for change, while the two little people were very comfortable with the life they had built and with the fact that they had discovered that there was cheese. So the two little people started waking up later. They started going straight to where the cheese was. They didn't necessarily look around the maze to see what was happening in the environment. And when day 0 finally came, they felt their lives shaken to the core. They were so shocked and surprised, and they felt as though their world was rocked. And they also felt victimized because how dare their cheese get moved? And they started asking questions like, who moved my cheese? As if it was their cheese, as if they didn't find the cheese in the station that they found it in. But what we learned from the mice is that they actually just put on their jogging shoes and continued running and looking for better cheese in the maze. They didn't waste time at all. As soon as they got there and realized that cheese was finished, they went on and looked for the next thing. And this is because they were aware of the fact that their environment was changing, which leads us to the next lesson. You must smell the cheese often so you know when it's getting old. You must enjoy your cheese, but also from time to time smell it. Look at the back and see if there's any mold that's starting to form. And notice when the cheese doesn't taste as great as it used to before. In our jobs or in our industries, we may have chosen these jobs and industries because there were the new things that excited us and we were passionate about. But then maybe years down the line, we realized that we don't feel as passionately about these industries anymore. Or maybe we also realized that they are becoming redundant in the future with the emergence of computers and AI and those sort of things. Maybe we picked that career for money, but then now we yearn for impact because of what's happening in our environment. Or maybe we were market leaders. We were the Nokia of our industry, and then we don't realize when Apple comes along. And so it is important that whilst we're enjoying the life and the cheese that we have, we don't get too complacent, that we don't look around and we don't see when things are changing in the industry, when things are changing in our lives, when mold is starting to form. Even in our relationships, I don't like to think of relationships and things that can be discarded when new things come along, unless if maybe it's like a really toxic relationship. But maybe our behavior is the water or moist that then allows for the cheese to mold up pretty fast. So don't be complacent. Yes, you have the cheese. Yes, you enjoy it. But look around and see whether new information is coming along. Look around and smell it, taste it, and with the eye of wanting to inspect and seeing if things are still okay with it, so that you don't get shocked when it goes bad. So that when you stop enjoying it, you can look for the next thing. You can look forward and you can start looking at the maze and seeing what else is around. The third lesson is when you stop being afraid, you feel good. Many of us don't like change because we're afraid of what's on the other side. We irrationally believe that only bad things are on the other side of change, which doesn't make sense at all. So I was in audit, and one of the phases that we asked as part of the risk assessment process was, what could go wrong? And I must say that I am also a person that asks what could go wrong and sort of solve for that, mitigate for that. But I want us to think about how it is irrational to only assume that the other side of change only bears things that could potentially go wrong, and start thinking or asking ourselves, well, what could go right? And don't get me wrong, I'm not implying that all change is good, because sometimes things just suck and sometimes there's not really like a silver lining that we can see. And the book does sort of simplify a very complex topic, but just bringing it back to the book and about life choices that we have to make, choices about our careers, choices about whether we should stay or leave a relationship, choices about changing jobs, choices about starting something new, about new products. Once you stop being afraid, you feel good. Once you stop being afraid, you recognize the opportunities that are on the other side of change. The next lesson is that it is safer to search in the maze than to stay in a cheeseless situation. Once a situation has been declared cheeseless, once we're like, okay, there's no more cheese, it's done here, it really is no use for us to stay in that situation. It actually becomes irrational in my view, unless you have decided that you want to admit defeat. So some people may be like the mice who get there and they see that there is nothing left here and they quickly run looking for the next thing. Some people may be like who maybe spend a second or two or a month really sitting in the situation and really assessing what that situation means for them, and then they go on and move on looking for new cheese. But then many of us, without even realizing it, could be like him, where we feel very hopeless in the situation and we just stay there because it's what we know and we think there is nothing else there. And linking to the previous point that I just mentioned, maybe we are really just afraid of what is on the other side, that we think staying in this maze that is cheeseless is the safest option, but it honestly isn't. But even in just speaking about this and in just recognizing the simplicity of the book, which we appreciate but also has its drawbacks, is that we don't know what happened to him. Maybe the new cheese got delivered in the station that he remained in, but at the same time, I personally would rather feel like I am in control, and when I make decisions, or when there's consequences of decisions, it's because I was actively involved in making that decision, instead of, waiting along for someone to potentially drop new cheese for me. I don't know, but I mean, we're different people. And so when there is a situation that is clearly cheeseless, please do yourself a favor and move on and find something else. It is much safer to be looking in the maze and seeing if you can find something else, instead of sitting and waiting for a lifeline to be thrown at you. The next lesson that I want to chat about is that there are many cheese stations. Now, this lesson wasn't necessarily discussed in the book, but Dr. Kenneth, who wrote the preamble, said that the book is not necessarily about what is written in it. It is also about how each and every one of us will get to interpret it. And I think that's very key. What I also got from this book is that, yes, we are in a maze, and these guys, all 4 of them, found the first cheese station, and they all settled there until it was finished, and then they think to look for something else. Just because you have found a station doesn't mean that other stations don't exist. And just because everybody is in this station doesn't mean it's the only station that we can possibly be in. And so be curious if you are the curious type, and follow questions that your heart places in you. Don't just do things because everybody else is doing them. And even when you find places where you feel like it's crowded and you want to go out and see if there isn't something else out there, do that. And if you were wrong about the situation, maybe if there isn't anything else out there, you can always come back to the path that you have already discovered. You know how to get to the first station. And so spend that little time and find what else is out there. The last lesson is move with the cheese and enjoy it. I don't know what your cheese is, but don't stay in an environment where the cheese is clearly left. The environment is the package, but the thing that you're looking for, if it is no longer there, don't stay in an environment where there's nothing there for you. So remember that you are following the cheese and not the environment. And if the environment doesn't work for you, but the cheese is there, maybe stay. But if the cheese is clearly there, don't stay for the environment. I think be true to yourself with what you're looking for and go for it. So that's it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. It was really a fun little book. It says that it takes less than an hour to read. I don't know, it took me an hour 30 minutes, but maybe then that's a me problem, not the book problem. And who are you? If you, like in the characters, do you recognize who you possibly would be? Are you maybe Sniff, who sniffs out change and acts early? Or Scary, who scares into action? Or Hem, who denies and resists change because they think it can only lead to something bad? Or even How. I feel like I may have been How, but the 5th version of him that he created as he went through the possibilities of what's on the other side of change and the lessons that it brought us today. Let me know what you think in the comment section, and until the next one, keep well.